a dark cave on a remote island, scientists uncovered a human skull, barely the size of a grapefruit, belonging to an adult just 3.5 feet tall, 1.06 meters. This was not a child nor a deformed individual, but a fully grown human with proportions unlike anything seen before in our evolutionary history. Standing only 3.5 feet tall, 1.06 meters, and weighing about 55 pounds, 25 kilograms, this human was smaller than most modern children. Yet, this tiny body carried a real human brain, human hands, and a story that would shake our understanding of what it means to be human. To understand how such a human could exist, we must first confront our obsession with height in the modern world. Over the last 100 years, average human height has increased by nearly 5%, driven by nutrition, medicine, and living conditions. Today, newborns are predicted to grow taller than their ancestors from a century ago, reinforcing the idea that bigger means better. But evolution does not move in straight lines. Height is not a goal. It is a response to environment, survival, and energy. Throughout prehistory, human size has repeatedly increased, shrunk, and shifted as climates changed and resources appeared or vanished. Early species like Homo habilis were about 30% smaller than modern humans, adapted for efficiency rather than strength. Later, Homo erectus grew taller and stronger, with body proportions approaching those of modern humans. For decades, scientists assumed this trend toward larger bodies would continue without exception. Then, in the early years of the 21st century, that assumption collapsed inside a limestone cave on the island of Flores. Flores lies in Indonesia, east of the deep Lombok Strait, a natural barrier separating Asia from Australasia. Even during ice ages, sea levels never dropped enough to connect Flores to the mainland by land bridges. This meant any humans reaching Flores had to cross open ocean, deliberately or by extraordinary chance. In 2003, archaeologists excavating Liangbua Cave expected to find early modern humans. Instead, they uncovered a nearly complete skeleton, later labeled LB1, unlike any Homo sapiens ever found. LB1 belonged to a female adult, confirmed by pelvic structure and fully fused bones. At first, some scientists suggested disease or developmental disorders could explain her small size. That idea weakened as more bones emerged from the cave, belonging to at least 15 individuals. All shared the same extreme small stature, proving this was not illness, but a stable population. Scientists officially named the species Homo floresiensis, after the island they once called home. The discovery marked one of the most shocking moments in paleoanthropology of the 21st century. But the biggest mystery remained unanswered. How did such a small human survive here for so long? To understand how Homo floresiensis survived, we must first understand the evolutionary rules that shape body size. In nature, body size is a trade-off between strength, energy needs, and survival under limited resources. Larger bodies consume more calories, while smaller bodies survive more easily when food is scarce. Over time, evolution favors sizes that best match the environment, not the biggest, but the most efficient. One of the clearest examples of this process appears on isolated islands across the world. On islands, large animals often evolve smaller bodies, a process known as insular dwarfism. Famous examples include dwarf elephants and hippos that once lived on Mediterranean islands. Limited space, fewer predators, and scarce food push evolution towards smaller, energy-saving bodies. Flores fits this pattern perfectly. A small island with unpredictable resources and long-term isolation. For humans living here, survival favored efficiency, endurance, and cooperation, not physical size. Over thousands of generations, natural selection gradually reduced body size while preserving functionality. This explains why Homo floresiensis remained fully human despite standing just 3.5 feet tall, 1.06 meters. Their small bodies required far fewer calories than modern humans, reducing daily survival pressure. A modern adult may need over 2,000 calories daily, while a smaller body could survive on much less. This metabolic advantage allowed Homo floresiensis to persist even during long periods of scarcity. But small size alone was not enough. Survival also demanded intelligence and cultural adaptation. Evidence shows these humans consistently produce stone tools, not randomly, but following learned patterns. Such tool-making requires planning, memory, and teaching, hallmarks of advanced cognition. This combination of small bodies and capable minds made Homo floresiensis uniquely adapted to Flores. Yet adaptation always comes with trade-offs, and Flores was far from a safe paradise. During the Pleistocene, Flores was home to predators unlike anything humans face today. Survival here required constant vigilance, group coordination, and intimate knowledge of the land. Despite their size, Homo floresiensis endured these pressures for hundreds of thousands of years. Their story challenges the idea that bigger bodies guarantee dominance or survival. On Flores, being small was not a weakness, it was the key to staying alive. Survival on Flores shaped not only body size, but the very way Homo floresiensis moved through the world. At first glance, their skeleton looks human, but closer inspection reveals proportions unseen in any living population. The most striking difference lies in their feet, which were unusually long relative to their short legs. Their feet measured closer to half the length of their lower legs, far more than in modern humans. Unlike modern humans, Homo floresiensis lacked a strong arch, giving them flat, flexible feet. This foot structure reduced energy efficiency during walking, forcing them to bend their knees with each step. Their walking style likely appeared slow and awkward compared to modern humans. But speed was not their advantage. Stability and endurance mattered far more in dense island forests. Long feet increased surface contact with the ground, improving balance on uneven terrain. In this environment, avoiding injury could mean the difference between life and death. Their legs, though short, were robust enough to support long periods of walking and foraging. Fossil joints show no signs of weakness, suggesting bodies well adapted to repetitive strain. Their arms tell a similar story, combining primitive traits with functional strength. Shoulder and collarbone anatomy suggests a posture slightly more forward-leaning than modern humans. This posture likely helped them climb, crouch, and maneuver through thick vegetation. Their hands retained strong grips, ideal for tool use, carrying food and processing carcasses. Every part of their body reflects compromise, not perfection, shaped by survival pressure. In evolutionary terms, Homo floresiensis was not a failure, but a precise solution to a harsh problem. Yet even the best adaptation has limits, especially on an island filled with dangerous predators. Slow movement meant danger could not be outrun, only anticipated and avoided. This made awareness, memory, and communication essential for survival. Their bodies shaped how they lived, and how they lived shaped the evolution of their minds. On Flores, intelligence was not optional. It was required to compensate for physical limits. This raises a deeper question: how intelligent could a brain this small really be? The answer lies not in size, but in how Homo floresiensis used their brain to survive. The brain of Homo floresiensis measured about 23 cubic inches, around 380 cubic centimeters, one of the smallest ever found in the genus Homo. By comparison, modern humans average over 75 cubic inches, about 1,230 cubic centimeters. At first, many assumed such a small brain meant limited intelligence and simple behavior. But fossils alone cannot measure intelligence. Behavior leaves its own evidence. Inside Liangbua cave, archaeologists found stone tools deliberately shaped, not randomly broken. These tools were produced using repeated techniques, passed down across generations. Tool layers show consistency over time, indicating learning, memory, and cultural continuity. Some tools were sharp enough to butcher animals, separating meat from bone with precision. Cut marks on fossilized bones confirm systematic processing, not scavenging by chance. Fire use further transformed survival on Flores, extending activity beyond daylight hours. Burnt sediments and charcoal fragments suggest controlled fire inside the cave. Fire provided warmth, protection, and a central place for social interaction. Cooking food increased calorie intake, making energy use more efficient for small bodies. These behaviors mirror those of much larger-brained human species living elsewhere at the same time. This forced scientists to reconsider a long-held assumption that brain size alone defines intelligence. Brain organization matters more than volume, especially how regions connect and cooperate. Studies suggest the frontal regions involved in planning were relatively well developed. This allowed foresight, coordination, and flexible responses to changing conditions. Intelligence here was practical, focused on survival rather than abstract complexity. Over time, culture became their most powerful adaptation, more important than muscle or speed. Knowledge of tools, fire, and food sources was shared, not hoarded. This social structure increased survival odds for individuals and the group alike. Yet even intelligence and cooperation had limits against the dangers of Flores. The island was not just challenging, it was actively hostile to small humans. To truly understand their survival, we must face the predators that shared their world. During the Pleistocene, Flores was not a peaceful island, but a dangerous ecosystem shaped by isolation. Isolation caused some animals to shrink, while others evolved into unexpected giants. Among the most terrifying was Leptoptilus robustus, a giant stork standing nearly 6 feet tall, 1.8 meters. With a wingspan over 12 feet, 3.6 meters, it was capable of hunting on land, not just scavenging. For a small human, barely 3.5 feet tall, 1.06 meters, this bird was a serious threat. Fossil evidence suggests juvenile Homo floresiensis may have been vulnerable to aerial attacks. But giant birds were only one danger in a landscape filled with predators. Flores was also home to Komodo dragons, massive lizards exceeding 10 feet in length, 3 meters. These reptiles are ambush predators, relying on stealth, venom, and patience. Even today, Komodo dragons attack large mammals, making small humans potential prey. Crocodiles added another layer of danger, especially near rivers and coastal areas. Saltwater crocodiles can exceed 17 feet, 5.2 meters, and are among the deadliest predators alive. For Homo floresiensis, approaching water always carried lethal risk. Large snakes, including giant pythons over 20 feet long, 6.1 meters, lurked in dense forests. These constrictors could overpower animals far larger than Homo floresiensis. Even scavenging birds and large vultures posed threats to the very young or injured. In this environment, Homo floresiensis was never at the top of the food chain. Survival depended on avoiding detection, not overpowering enemies. They likely learned predator behavior, memorizing safe paths and dangerous zones. Group living reduced individual risk, providing more eyes and faster warnings. Nighttime retreat into caves offered protection from many land predators. Firelight may have deterred reptiles and birds, creating temporary safe zones. Every day was a calculation of risk, energy, and timing. Those who misjudged the environment likely did not survive to pass on their genes. And yet, against all odds, Homo floresiensis endured this nightmare world for hundreds of thousands of years. Survival on Flores demanded not only avoiding predators, but finding enough food on a limited island. Large prey was rare, forcing Homo floresiensis to rely on flexible and opportunistic diets. Fossil remains show that one of their primary food sources was stegodon, a dwarf relative of elephants. Adult stegodon was still dangerous, but juveniles offered rare, high-calorie rewards. Cut marks on stegodon bones indicate deliberate butchery using stone tools. Such hunts were likely infrequent, risky, and required cooperation rather than brute force. More often, daily survival depended on smaller animals that demanded less energy to capture. Giant rats, some weighing over 11 pounds, about 5 kilograms, were abundant on Flores. These rodents provided a reliable and manageable protein source for small-bodied humans. Birds, reptiles, and their eggs further diversified their diet across seasons. Foraging for plants, tubers, and fruits likely filled the gaps between hunts. This mixed strategy reduced dependence on any single food source. Small body size meant fewer calories were needed to stay alive each day. This energy efficiency turned scarcity into a survivable challenge rather than a death sentence. Food sharing within the group further increased survival during difficult periods. Such sharing suggests social bonds strong enough to override individual competition. Hunting and foraging were timed carefully to avoid peak predator activity. Knowledge of seasonal cycles became as important as physical skill. Mistakes in timing or location could quickly turn fatal on Flores. Over generations, successful strategies were remembered and repeated. This accumulation of survival knowledge functioned as a form of cultural memory. Culture allowed Homo floresiensis to survive conditions that would overwhelm isolated individuals. For nearly a million years, these strategies kept the species alive on Flores. But long survival did not guarantee permanence in a changing world. A new presence would soon arrive, bringing pressures unlike anything before. Around 50,000 years ago, a new human presence began spreading through Southeast Asia. These were Homo sapiens, anatomically modern humans with growing populations and expanding range. Archaeological evidence shows sapiens reached island Southeast Asia rapidly. They possessed advanced tools, complex language, and flexible social networks. Eventually, Homo sapiens reached islands dangerously close to Flores. There is no direct evidence that sapiens and Homo floresiensis ever met face to face. But coexistence in the same region would have created powerful indirect pressures. Modern humans exploited resources more efficiently and at larger scales. This reduced food availability for smaller, isolated populations like Homo floresiensis. Even slight ecological shifts could destabilize a finely balanced survival system. Hunting pressure from sapiens may have reduced key prey species over time. Increased competition forced Homo floresiensis to rely on ever narrower margins. Small populations are especially vulnerable to sudden environmental change. Volcanic activity and climate fluctuations added further stress to island life. Flores experienced eruptions that altered landscapes and vegetation patterns. For a species adapted to stability, rapid change could be catastrophic. Over generations, survival rates likely declined as pressures accumulated. Cultural knowledge alone could not compensate for shrinking resources and rising competition. Homo floresiensis did not vanish suddenly, but faded gradually from the record. Their disappearance leaves no signs of warfare or violent replacement. Instead, extinction likely came through quiet processes of competition and change. By around 50,000 years ago, Homo floresiensis disappears from the fossil record. One of the smallest human species had survived nearly a million years, then was gone. Their extinction reminds us that survival depends on context, not superiority. And their story forces us to rethink what it truly means to be human. The discovery of Homo floresiensis forced scientists to rethink the limits of human variation. For decades, human evolution was imagined as a narrow path toward larger bodies and brains. Flores showed that evolution could take radically different directions at the same time. Homo floresiensis existed alongside other human species, not as an ancestor, but as a cousin. This means human evolution was once a crowded landscape, not a single line. Each species represented a unique solution to survival under specific conditions. Homo floresiensis solved the problem of island life through efficiency, not dominance. Their existence challenges the assumption that intelligence requires constant growth in size. It also raises questions about how many human species remain undiscovered. Fossil preservation is rare, and many islands remain poorly explored. Flores may not have been unique, only uniquely preserved. The story of Homo floresiensis also exposes how fragile small populations can be. Long-term survival does not guarantee immunity to sudden change. Evolution rewards adaptation to the present, not preparation for the future. When conditions shift beyond tolerance, even successful species can disappear. Homo floresiensis reminds us that extinction is a natural part of human history. Modern humans are not the end goal of evolution, just the current survivors. Our dominance today reflects circumstance, not inevitability. The Hobbit of Flores stands as a warning against simplistic views of progress. Small, slow, and vulnerable yet capable of surviving almost 1 million years. Few human species can claim such extraordinary persistence. Their legacy lies not in monuments, but in what they teach us about adaptability. By studying them, we better understand our own limits and vulnerabilities. Homo floresiensis may be gone, but their message remains. To be human is not to be the biggest, but to adapt, endure, and survive. Despite decades of study, Homo floresiensis still guards many of its deepest secrets. One of the greatest mysteries remains their exact evolutionary origin. Fossils alone provide clues, but not definitive answers. DNA could resolve this debate, but tropical environments rarely preserve genetic material. So far, all attempts to extract DNA from Flores fossils have failed. Without genetics, scientists rely on anatomy, tools, and context. This makes Homo floresiensis one of the most debated human species ever discovered. Some questions may never be fully answered, and that is part of science. Yet every discovery reshapes our understanding of the human past. Flores reminds us that the fossil record is incomplete by nature. Entire human species may have existed and vanished without leaving a trace. Islands, caves, and remote regions remain key to future discoveries. New technologies are allowing scientists to see fossils in unprecedented detail. Digital reconstructions can now test how extinct humans moved and lived. Each advance brings us closer to understanding lost branches of humanity. But understanding the past also forces reflection on the present. Today, Homo sapiens is the only surviving human species. That uniqueness is not a sign of superiority, but of survival through chance. Climate change, competition, and chance shaped who remained. Homo floresiensis shows how quickly balance can be lost. Their extinction was not dramatic, but it was final. No monuments mark their passing, only bones in the dark. Yet those bones carry a powerful lesson. Survival does not belong to the biggest, fastest, or strongest. It belongs to those who adapt best to their world. For nearly 1 million years, Homo floresiensis did exactly that. Their story expands the definition of what it means to be human. Intelligence, cooperation, and culture matter more than size. The Hobbit of Flores stands as proof of humanity's deep diversity. And their loss reminds us how fragile that diversity can be. As we study the past, we gain responsibility for the future. Understanding extinction helps us recognize warning signs today. The story of Homo floresiensis is not just history, it is a mirror. It reflects the risks faced by any species in a changing world, including our own. Somewhere, hidden beneath stone and soil, more stories may still wait. Each discovery has the power to change everything we think we know. Homo floresiensis changed the story once. And science remains open to being changed again. In the end, evolution has no final form. Only endless experiments in survival. Some succeed briefly. Some endure for ages. Homo floresiensis was one of them. Small in body, but vast in significance. Their bones whisper a truth across time. Humanity was never meant to be one shape. And survival was never about being the tallest. It was always about fitting the world you lived in. This is the legacy of the smallest humans who ever lived.